Tonight's show, we're going to be talking about the housing crisis and how you can be a part of the solution. I want to thank those of you who are watching, and for those of you who tune in every week. I really appreciate you. So let's just get right into the show. We all know that there's a housing crisis, right? The current state of America is in a housing crisis. It's not only New York City. All right. The current state of the situation of the housing situation is in crisis. There is a severe shortage of affordable housing and housing, period. It's not only affordable housing, it's housing, period. Now, gentrification has a lot to do with it. That's another issue because people are being forced out of their homes, out of their neighborhoods because they just simply can't afford to live there anymore. What's the solution? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. The solution can be more affordable housing because more affordable housing is needed. More affordable housing is needed. Now, let me just say this. There's a difference between affordable housing and low income housing. Low income housing is for those with low income. And when I say low income, I mean low income, like, Section 8. Okay? Right. Affordable housing. Affordable housing, it could run, 2,000, 2,500, 1,500. They consider it affordable, for those who, what they consider to be, middle class income. That's what they call affordable. So there's a big difference between those two. But most people can't qualify for Section 8. I think Section 8 is good. I don't have anything against Section 8. But most people cannot qualify for Section 8 because your income has to be within a certain threshold. And if your income is not within a certain threshold, you just simply don't qualify. But now there's not even no housing for Section 8 or Phelps. There's a crisis, y'all. Okay. Governments, the government, local governments, your politicians who are letting all these developers in to build all of these high rises that are all over the place. Everywhere you look, there's building here, building there, going up here, there, you know. There's no parking spaces already in some of these neighborhoods. So now you're putting up these buildings, these high rises, and it's just like, ugh. But anyway, local governments can put pressure on some of these developers to build more affordable and low income houses in areas where the prices are rising too quickly. Because these rents are absolutely insane. Insane. Anyway, for all of this reason, housing has just become too expensive to rent. And because of that, shared housing was born. Shared housing, where people come together and they share these expenses. Because if you do not have Section 8, or you do not have Phelps, these are government programs, okay, for those of you whose income, qualifies for those type of programs. But for those of us who don't, then you need a partner or you need a good job that you'll be able to afford to live in these apartments or houses okay? Because one salary, unless you're making a very good income, it's just not going to do it. or you may be living in your mother's basement or your mother's house, then you can do that. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just telling you that there's a crisis. There's a housing crisis everywhere. And you can be a part of the solution. So I want to actually touch on the migrant situation. There are tens of thousands of migrants arriving. Now I'm talking about New York because this is where I live. I see on the news that they're arriving in all of these other states as well. But I know New York, they are arriving every day. Every day. And, I've actually traveling, got an opportunity to see them coming in on buses, see them over at, the Port Authority, how they just coming in. They're coming in. And, our Mayor Adams, praying for him because, they're coming in and he's trying to look for places to, house these people. So he's setting them up in hotels and setting up parking lots and, cruise ships. And he's placing these people in these, in giant tents, because he's trying to find a solution. He's trying to house these people, putting them on Randall's Island and every idea that he has entertained, he's getting backlash. He's getting uproar from the people, you know. Um, and these migrants are continuing to come in. But you can be a part of the solution. So with no clear solutions at hand, the city is turning to now public schools. They're turning to public school gyms. They're setting up cots in gyms to place these migrants. And of course, he's being met with outrage. These parents, they just didn't having it. They're like, no way. What is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? Now, watch this. So it says the city of New York has already received over 67,000 migrants in New York City. 67,000. Since the crisis began, right? Now, that's not on top of those that are still arriving every day. Now, the mayor, right? His administration has to contend with new layers of what was already a humanitarian and economic crisis. Because like I said, before these migrants became to come in, we were already dealing with the homelessness crisis. That the city, right, has already spent $1 billion addressing so far. And I'm spending time on this because I'm going somewhere, right? And they have already estimated that they're going to spend somewhere to the tune up to $4.3 billion through June 2024. You can be a part of the solution. This housing crisis is so crazy that it has what the news is saying, that it has strained Mr. Mayor Adams' relationship with the New Yorkers and also President Biden. Because as the mayor, he has to find some way to put these people. You can be part of the solution. And this is why I want to talk about shared housing. Do all of you know what shared housing is? The current housing crisis has, I don't want to say forced people, but it has been born. I mean, I know people used to do it, but now it's very popular because people just simply cannot afford to live on their own. They can't afford to pay for the rent. So we got two things going on here. Shared housing is needed because prices, homes, living, rent is unaffordable. The rent prices makes it unaffordable for people to pay. That's one problem. Let's double that now with the problem that there is no housing available because of the migrant issue. A friend of mine's uh, actually is a real estate broker, and I was actually trying to help somebody obtain housing, and they had a Phelps voucher. I think the voucher was for like, I don't know, $2,500. I'm not really sure. This was a couple of months ago. But when I called him, he said, Cynthia, I have nothing. He said, there is nothing available. There's no housing available. There's just no housing available. Everything is tied up. Everything is taken. And I said, wow, really? It's like that? He said, yes, I'm turning people away. I have never had to turn people away. Can you imagine? You can be part of the solution. So the question is, though, do you want to be a part of the solution? So let's talk about group homes. Shared housing and group homes are similar. Okay, a different meaning though. What is shared housing? Shared housing is, let's just say, I have a house and I have a friend who wants to move in because she does not want to live alone and she can't afford to live on her own. And we both agree that, okay, well, you can move in, take a room, and we just split the expenses. That's shared housing. Group homes, on the other hand, is somewhat different, but they have, what I want to say, they have different, okay, they have different names, but they all basically are similar. They just have different names. So what is a group home? Then I'm going to get into. So a group home is residential in nature. It's just a house, right? And it could serve anywhere between, I don't know, maybe 10 people and up, 10 to 15 people, depending on how big the house is. You may have maybe 2 beds to a room, depending on how big the room is. And basically, you are providing an efficient way for members of vulnerable groups, be it veterans, be it substance abuse, be it domestic violence, whatever it is, right? To basically come together, right? Maybe mental health disabilities, but they're all under the same roof. And you're providing supportive services to these individuals. Supportive services can be, counseling, training, Bible study, support services. It's basically to better their overall quality of life. That's what group homes are. And sometimes they're more of on a permanent basis. Well, when I say permanent, meaning that they're not looking to move out right away, you know. But this is going to be a 2-part series. I think I did mention that at the beginning. If I didn't, I'm going to stop right here, take a commercial break. This series is going to be a 2-part series because there's no way that I can unload all that I have to say into one series. So next week is going to be a continuation of what I don't get to complete and finish tonight. Okay? If you have any questions, you can always email me or put them in the chat. But you can send your questions to me, which I will reiterate again at the end of the show. You can send your questions to info, I-N-F-O, at cynthiahurley.net. Now, back to the show. So group homes, depending on how you structure your contract, lease, whatever you want to call it, but they're normally, they could be somewhat of a longer term than a transitional home, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Now, a transitional home is different from a group home in being that they're similar, but a transitional home it refers to a supportive, right? Yet temporary type of accommodation. It's a temporary type of accommodation up to a year, could be up to 6 months. However long to take to get these women or men or whatever the community is to get them up on their feet, so that they can become productive members of society again. But it's meant to bridge them from despair to hope, homelessness to permanent housing. That's what transitional housing is for. Now, for those of you who don't know, but I am the founder. I like to say the Holy Spirit is the founder. He's just using me as a vessel. But anyway, I'm the founder of several transitional homes called the Houses of Malachi. So the Houses of Malachi is for women who are being released from prison. That's what the Houses of Malachi is for. And, at one point I served the population of homelessness, drug addiction, co-occurring disorder, mental illness. It was all just one big melting pot. All right. This is the population that I'm dealing with. But now I'm getting ready to change the population to the prison, just strictly prison. But anyway, so Houses of Malachi was birthed in 2008. And in 2008, back then, they had a homelessness crisis because the city would contact me to try to send me women from one of their city shelters because they were not able to, they didn't have enough room to house them. They had no room. So back then, there was a crisis. You can be part of the solution. And back then, there wasn't too many houses around like myself. The ones that were, they closed down because of illegal practices. People open up these houses and they just want to take the money and they want to treat these people any kind of way, and all kind of nonsense is going on. They packing, 20 people in a room. You cannot do that. So the little that were around, they're not around no more. They're not around no more. They do have some, but they don't have many. You can be part of the solution. Okay? So I'm saying that to say my operation is more of a transitional setup. And that's what transitional housing is. And I just want to help you to understand what the difference is between them so that should you decide to become a part of the solution, then you'll have an understanding somewhat of what you may want to, do. All right. We already talked about what shared housing is, right? So let's look at now. You may hear people say, oh, she's in a sober home, or, I want to start domestic violence, or, what is it? Excuse me, a room and house. All of these basically are just communities that you can put, whether in the transitional home or group home, but it depends on the community. What are some of the communities? You got the domestic violence, like I said, you got the developmentally disabled. Okay, you have the veterans, you have substance abuse, you have pregnant teens. All of these are just communities. And it's good that, see, when I first started, mine was just a melting pot because I didn't even know no better. I'll tell you about that story next week. But anyway, it was a melting pot. I had no idea. All of these different communities were all together in this one house. But only by the grace of God, it just worked. But it's good that that you would have one community. Like if you're going to do women from prison, do women from prison. If you're going to do domestic violence, keep it domestic violence. But I will say this: if now we're not even going to talk about the pay, that's a whole nother different ball game. Yes, the pay is good and it's lucrative, but that's not why you should get in. That's not why you should get involved. It's not why. Okay, but so some of them, like I want to say, the disabled, developmental disabled, you know, that may require it will require 24-hour assistance, especially when it comes to giving medication, dispersing medication and checking temperatures and all of that kind of stuff, bathing. And now that level of care will require a license. But to open up a group home, to open up a transitional home, to do a domestic violence home, a sober home, you don't need a license for that. You just need a heart. You need a heart. You do not need a license. Do you need training? No, you need a strategy. And I'm going to help you with all of that. But I'm not getting into all of that today. You're going to get half of this today, and you're going to get the rest next week if you tune in. If you tune in, how can you get started? That's one of the number one questions I get. I want to do that. How do I get started? How long is it going to take me? You can get set up in 30 to 45 days. You just need the strategy. You just need the roadmap. Do I have to own a home, Cynthia? No, you don't. You don't have to own a home. And I'm going to tell you why you don't need to own a home. When I first got started, when I opened, because this was not by choice, okay? This was a God thing with me, okay? That's how I ended up with the houses of Malachi. It was really a God thing. But I will say this. When the lady who came to, let me just say this. I was looking to sell my properties, and I had 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. And I was just looking to get rid of them because that is the time when the housing crisis was just taking effect, where the market went left and, couldn't afford these mortgages. I was like, listen, and one of them was my office. I just wanted to get rid of all of it. I was tired. I didn't want to deal with no tenants. I wanted to get rid of these properties. Anyway, wasn't able to do that. And a friend of mine's called me up. She said, Cynthia, I got somebody I need you to meet. She said, I need you to meet this woman. She's a pastor. And I said, okay. She said she got this program and she's looking for a house to put these women in. And, that's just your mortgage right there. Just get that and just pay the mortgage. That's what she told me. So I was like, yeah, okay. So I meet the woman who's a pastor, take her to all of the properties. And she's like, we going to take it. She told me about the program she had. She had one of these transitional houses, and it was women. They were drug addicted, mental illness, domestic violence, all of them. It was just, so she moved them in. And, you know, I was nervous. I don't know. I was just nervous. But she was like, we agreed on the price that she was going to pay me. I didn't care. I just wanted to pay my mortgage and have a little income. That was it. Well, I want to say like 2 weeks into the program, me and her talking on the phone and, you know, just talking and, she making sure, and I'm going over there, checking on the property and everything is fine or whatever. Then one day, this woman, she just disappeared. Y'all, she disappeared. It's no lie. I called her number and a woman answered the phone and said, you're not going to see her for a minute, for a very long time. And I said, what do you mean I'm not going to see her for a very long time? She never said why. She just said, you are not going to see her for a very long time. I said, okay. So now I'm panicking because, my husband said, don't you move them people in there, blah, blah. And I'm like panicking. So I go over to the house where the women are. And as I get to the house, the girl who was managing the place, which is called a house manager, we'll get into all of that next week. She opens the door, because I went over there to kick these women out my house. Because first of all, they were all, like, I was not used to being around these type of population. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not. So I was ready to go over there and say, listen, y'all got to go. Well, I get over there and the young lady opens the door. I'll never forget it. Her name was Crystal. She's passed on now. But anyway, she starts crying. Now I'm going over there to tell her about this ladies and disappear. Y'all got to go. She's crying. And I'm looking at her and she goes, Cynthia, I'm so sorry. I may lose my job, but I gotta tell you this. He said, this woman, she don't treat us right. She take out food stamps and she don't buy us no food and we don't be having no lights and Cynthia, you seem such a nice lady and I don't want them to do that to you. She said they move us every 3 months because they don't pay no rent and they just let us stay at the people's house. They don't pay rent to the owners. And Cynthia, I don't want them to do that to you. I don't want them to do that to you. Now I'm looking at her like, oh, serious, y'all. Like I looked at her like I was like frightened, frozen, because I said, what mistake did I make? Now watch this. I still didn't get a chance to tell her that the woman disappeared and the lady said she was never coming back. I didn't get a chance to say none of that. The girl, Crystal, says to me, Cynthia, we all got together and we said, we don't want her to manage us no more. We want you to manage us. We'll teach you everything you need to know. I'm getting teary-eyed. Because she said, we don't want her to take care of us. We want you to take care of us, Cynthia. Now, these girls really didn't know me like that. And I knew nothing. I knew nothing about dealing with women and drug addiction, and I knew nothing. But they did not want to be subject to this woman and her abuse. And that's how Houses of Malachi was born. I let them women stay in that house, and they taught me everything that I know. And that was in 2008. I'm telling you, my God, I love those women. They taught me how to run a house. They taught me how to deal with these personalities. They taught me how to know when someone is lying. They taught me how to do the paperwork. They taught me everything. And now watch this. What happened to the woman? I'm not going to tell y'all that. I'll tell you the rest of the story next week. But I'm telling you all this to say that you can be a part of the solution. And next week, I'm going to show you just how you can be a part of the solution. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Um, you may feel that well, I gave you enough information to let you know why you're needed, why you can be a part of the solution. Next week, I'm going to show you how. All right. So tune in. I'm going to be back here at the same time, right? Same time. I'll be right here. And we'll go over everything. Have your questions ready. Okay? Have your questions ready. And I'll make sure I answer all the questions that you have. I want to thank you for tuning in and watching. And with that being said, have a wonderful, blessed evening.